What is up, Felrooters? I'm Joshua Thomas, back for another top 5 board games on the Felroot Express, and this top 5 is, well, the top 5 gifts to give this holiday season. This is different from my last top 5 where we talked about family games particularly. This is just top 5 broad board games in general. And I gotta say, it was difficult to narrow it down to a top 5. I could probably do a top 50 or a top 100 and still be scratching my head as to, should I have included this on the list or not? So don't take this as the end-all be-all. Just take this as a good top 5 for a variety of people. Let's go ahead and get started. And these are in no particular order. So number 1 is going to be the good party-ish game that's also a crime-solving game. We love playing this. This game is super easy to learn, a ton of fun to do. You can switch roles up each time you play it, and a game can be over in like 10 or 15 minutes. And it is Deception Murder in Hong Kong. In Deception Murder in Hong Kong, all the players are going to have a series of cards laid out in front of them that have some kind of different item or place on it, or just some kind of utensil that could have been involved in a murder. One player is going to be the forensic investigator who is going to give clues to the other players because the investigator knows who the murderer is, and it's up to everyone else to figure out, based on the clues and the items in front of them, who the murderer is. And it's up to the murderer to convince everyone else that, no, it was this guy over here, the investigator said that one of the causes of death was blunt force trauma. Well, I know I've got a hammer, but this guy over here has, a wooden board. They could both cause blunt force trauma, and it couldn't have just been me. So it's definitely one of those bluffing and deduction games that puts a different spin on the bluff-duction sort of line of games. And it's, like I said, it can be played in 10 minutes, so you can switch up who the forensic investigator is, and then randomly select who the other players are. And there are more than just those 3 jobs that I talked about, or classes. So it can get more complex in that there could be an accomplice to the murderer who is also trying to help throw people off the trail of the murderer. Once again, this is kind of like a party-style game, so lots of players can get involved in it. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction. My number 2 for the top gifts to give this holiday season is going to be Patchwork. Patchwork is a 2-player game, and it is one of the quintessential 2-player games. In Patchwork, you are simply trying to knit a quilt, and your currency is buttons. Like, literally, buttons is your currency. That's how you pay for certain things in the game to do a little extra. Whoever can make the best quilt based on their strategy is the winner. It's that simple. And yet, there's so much complexity to the game because as you play the game, all the pieces are going to be spread out in a circle for you, and it's up to you to move your piece around in order to collect these different polynomial shapes, kind of like Tetris pieces, and then figure out how best to put that piece on your grid to build or knit your quilt. So Patchwork is super simple, fun, and just an all-around good 2-player game, and who would have thought you could have fun knitting a quilt? I don't know where else to go from there. Number 3, and this was one of the tough ones. I kept racking my brain over what it should be. This is going to be kind of the sleeper hit. This is going to be that game that maybe that really hardcore gamer in your life has had their eye on and perhaps just hasn't bought yet, and that's going to be Innis. Important to note, I've got the old box art for Innis. Innis has some new box art, so make sure you don't see this in their collection before going out to buy the new one, which looks like this. There's also expansions to Innis. I know they've got, I believe, Seasons, if I'm not mistaken, which unfortunately I haven't had a chance to play, but I can only imagine just adds so much more to the game. Innis is an absolutely beautiful multiplayer game. It's area control. Technically, it's area majority because multiple clans can exist on these same tiles without fighting each other. It's only when a clan decides to make a move based on the cards that they play when combat can potentially happen. And even when someone wants to start a fight, it's up to the other players. They can be like, whoa, no, I'm backing out of this fight. Or they can be like, yeah, let's go in. Let's put them up. And it's super simple. There's no dice. It's literally just a 1-for-1 trade-off. If you get involved in the fight, you lose one clan. Because of this mechanism for this game, it makes it super strategic, and it makes you really rely on the cards that are in your hands, because the more cards you have in your hand, the more opportunities you have in combat and in doing many other things in the game to try and thwart your opponents. The objective of the game is to be crowned the King of Ireland, and the way you do that is by controlling 6 different territories, or by controlling enough territories that have 6 sanctuaries on them, or by controlling one territory that has 6 other clans on it as well. So very strategic. I love the way that the card drafting works in the game, and once again, the artwork is just stunning. If you haven't played Innis, you can't go wrong, especially if that loved one of yours loves area control games a la Risk or Area Majority, a la just about any other large-scale combat game out there. And my next one on the list, number 4, is the quintessential cooperative game. If you haven't heard of this, you definitely need to play it, and it is called Pandemic. Now, I've got Pandemic Legacy Season 2 here, and if that tells you anything about this line of games, well, it's quite possibly one of the most popular board game franchises in existence. Pandemic is a cooperative game in which you are globetrotting around the world trying to stave off these spreading viruses and diseases. And you do this by expanding action points that you have each turn. And also, you need to find the cure to all 4 of these viruses in order to win the game. You're working together, so you're globetrotting, trying to find the right combination of cards, and then sharing this information with each other so that when you can turn in 5 cards of the same color of the disease, then you find the cure and then you can begin eradicating it. Once you've found the cure to all 4 diseases, you and everyone else playing with you has won the game. It gets a little bit more complex than that because as the game goes on, the diseases spread even more rapidly, and you may have to utilize one-time use cards in order to just give yourselves a fighting chance. If the diseases spread too far and too wide and too much, then you guys lose the game as the world has just become overrun with these unstoppable viruses. And number 5 isn't even a game at all, but it is a great gift that any really, hobby board gamer or just tabletop gamer in general is going to enjoy, and that is dice trays / component bowls. This happens to be the Board Game Geek bowls that you can get in multiple different colors, and you can roll dice in these, store components in these. You can even link them together to make them a little bit bigger. So it's a lot of fun, and it just helps to add to a board game that perhaps has a lot of components that you need to keep track of and yet move around. Maybe, oh, hey, there's resources. Here, grab some resources out of this bowl. Even the people who like to play RPGs need somewhere to roll their dice, and dice trays and component bowls are just great for that. But since you came here for board games, I'm going to give you an honorable mention, and that is Kalis. Kalis is just an all-around fun game. I'd considered making it my sleeper hit, but I think Kalis may be more well-known than Innis, and it's also in the top 100. Now, this is another one to keep an eye on because your loved one who is an avid board gamer may already have it in their collection, as they changed the box art several years ago. So here is what the old box art looks like. This is what you should look to make sure they don't already have, and here's what the new box art looks like. Yeah, it's definitely an improvement. So those were the top 5 gifts to give to your board gamer this holiday season, plus an honorable mention. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, and be sure to check out more board game and video game videos on the Felroad Express. Thanks for watching. Check you next time.